Good morning and welcome. Welcome all you veterans from all wars, and you Vietnam veterans, welcome home. My name is Michael Creighton Kerr. Creighton, my middle name, was derived from my great uncle who served in World War I and World War II. He's buried at Arlington National Cemetery. My father and two uncles served in World War II. I had two uncles serve in the Korean War. My brother-in-law and I served in Vietnam. I have a brother-in-law that served in Operation Desert Storm, and I have two nephews. One currently serving in the Army, and the other a young Marine, 24 years of age. Graduated from high school, decided to join the Marine Corps as his father, my brother-in-law, had. He went to Afghanistan, and he came home with some demons. He died as a result of post-traumatic stress disorder complications this year. So I'm here because I don't want you to forget those men and women that served, but also the families that have suffered from the introduction of war into our human race. The Battle of the Ia Drang Valley started on the 14th of November 1965 and lasted for 4 days. Elements of the 2nd Battalion, 7th Cavalry defeated the communist element in that area soundly. Although they suffered grievous casualties, they did us proud. And during that war, United States soldiers never lost a pitched battle. At the beginning of 1966, the 4th Infantry Division took over the Ia Drang Valley as an area of their operations, as the 1st Cav and the 7th Air Cav moved to better fight on grounds conducive to their battle plans. At the southwestern corner of the Ia Drang Valley, there was not a mountain. It was a mountain, not a huge mountain, but they called it Chupong Matsif, and we just called it Chupa. Rose high above the Ia Drang Valley. And in 1969, my mentor, Major Jerry Laird, was killed on Chupa. Just prior to that, I thought I was one of those tough guys. We were up on LZ Mile High near Dak To, and although I was supposed to have 44 men in my platoon, I had 22, and losing them fast. We're in the middle of nowhere. And I was up there, about a month, and all of a sudden, resupply helicopter came in, dropped off ammunition, water, food, and the battalion chaplain got out and ran over to then Captain Laird's bunker. We go, geez, what's the battalion chaplain doing here? Captain Laird called me up to his bunker. He says, Lieutenant, he says, Lieutenant, you have a wife at home? Yes, sir. The battalion chaplain's sitting there watching me too. Yes, sir. Lieutenant, have you written a letter home yet? No, sir. Without even saying a word, he gave me some writing paper, he gave me some envelopes, and he gave me a pen. He says, you'll sit right down here and write your lovely wife a letter. So I did. I was shaking, wrote the letter, because I didn't think I was going to live to see the next day. We got down to 18 men up there. Well, lo and behold, I sealed the letter, gave it to Captain Laird, he gave it to the battalion chaplain. I started to give him the stationery, pen, and envelopes back, and he says, Lieutenant, this is not going to happen again. This is just not about you. I didn't understand. I knew then I better write home on a regular basis. My wife was going to call the chaplain service and wonder if I was still alive. But in 1994, I went to the 1st 35th Infantry Regiment reunion in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Signed in, they give you a big name tag. I walk towards the end of the line, and there's a distinguished look. It's 95 degrees. It's in Philly. It's the end of July. 95 degrees. And there is a distinguished-looking Southern belle. Hair all coiffured, full-length dress, high heels. It's 95 degrees, high heels. Next to her is a strikingly beautiful young lady, mid to late 30s. And as I walked past them, she said, "Lieutenant," she said, "I'm Zima Laird. I'm Jerry Laird's widow. And this is his daughter, Lisa. Let me give you a hug." Gave me a hug. Lisa gave me a hug. And later on that day, we got to talk, and they didn't want to know how Jerry Laird died. They wanted to know what kind of leader he was. And I was able to tell them some stories that show true professionalism in our military service. But she said, "You know what happened?" She said, "He would write home religiously. Lisa was only 3. So when he wrote a letter home, he also wrote a letter to Lisa. And when Lisa turned 16, Zima Laird gave her the letters from her father, who she never knew. Then I understood exactly what Jerry Laird was saying. It's not all about you, because it's not. Also killed with him in January of 1969 was Douglas Ross. Douglas Ross's body was not recovered until 1994. These people had parents, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, and even in Jerry Laird's incident, he had a daughter. So please, I know this is Veterans Day, and I'm certainly honored to be here with the veterans that have served, but please do not forget those relatives, friends that have people in harm's way now and that have had people that are currently serving. I would like to tell you of the 58,000 plus soldiers killed in Vietnam, 8 of them women. I'd like to tell you about 3 of them. These 3, it's not my phone. Easy. 3 of them were killed on this day in 1968. And each of them had been in my platoon long enough that I got to know them a little bit. Gary Rust, we called him Rusty. He enlisted in the military. He had 4 brothers and 4 sisters. He was in Southampton, Massachusetts. He came, he wanted to be a career soldier. Every time we had the mortar platoon up on a fire base with us, he'd go over there and do plot plans, learn how to cut the powder charges. Every time the machine, we had a bad minute, shot up all ammunition, he was right over there trying to figure out how to put the machine gun, clean it, put it back together properly. Gary Rust left a mother, a father, 4 brothers, and 4 sisters. We called him Rusty, and everybody liked him because when you got your sundry packs, you got little packs of, 3 or 4 cigarettes. And lo and behold, everyone would give Rusty their cigarettes because Rusty loved to play poker. And he would play poker with the other platoons or other outfits on the fire base and take all their cigarettes. And then he would go back and give the guys in his platoon a whole heck of a lot more cigarettes than he had. Not only was he a great soldier, he was a better man and beloved by the men of the 1st 35th Infantry Regiment. Second guy I'd like to introduce you to is Jim Humphrey from Shawnee Mission, Kansas. Jim Humphrey, we call him Hump. He was a Shawnee Mission heartland guy. He looked like a 170-pound linebacker. And we call him Hump because if anybody ever got it to be a bad hump, you're going uphill or whatever, and anybody having a little struggle carrying their load, which sometimes included more ammunition, but a lot of machine gun ammunition and sometimes extra water, they'd give it to Hump. Hump put it on his back. And when we had to dig in at night, the last shovel you heard was his. He'd dig his hole, and if anybody else was still a digging, Hump was over there helping them to get underground before dark. His squad leader, Neil Fanning, was getting ready to go. Squad leaders and I got together and says, who is going to be Fanning's replacement? Everybody said Hump, because he knew it, he did it, he lived it every day. Called old Jim Humphrey up to the bunker and said, hey, Jim, he said, we'd like to promote you to staff sergeant. We'd like you to run 3rd Squad here. He said, sir, with all due respect, he said, Johnson's got a wife and a child. Can you give the stripes and give the money to him, and I'll run the squad for you? What? Money, promotion, prestige. He wasn't going to buy it. Gave his stripes, gave his money away to a fellow soldier that had a wife and child at home, and he ran the squad like a true trooper he was. Last fellow that I'm going to talk to you about this morning was Leslie Bratton. Oh, Jim Humphrey was a student at Kansas University, but thought he'd leave Kansas University to serve his country. Leslie Bratton, we called him Preacher. Preacher wanted to become, he was West Monroe, Louisiana. Preacher wanted to become an ordained minister. More than once, getting ready for a combat assault, you know, you had to go down and inspect everybody and make sure they had their water, their food, their ammunition. More than once did you find Preacher without a round in the chamber of his gun. He couldn't fathom shooting anybody else, but would not be a conscientious objector and would not lose the opportunity to serve his country. Preacher, who knew what day it was there? We called this the world, not Michigan, not Troy. We called this the world. And Tuesday, Sunday, Friday, they didn't mean anything. You knew how many days it took to get home. And you knew that clearly. But Preacher, every Sunday, hey, Lieutenant, we could be out in the middle of no man's land. Didn't matter we were on patrol or what. He'd say, Lieutenant, can I have a couple minutes to say a prayer? Yeah. Put out security. The guys that wanted to listen to Preacher, he always carried his Bible. He'd give a 5 or 10 minute, sometimes a 20-minute service to those men in the field, and then go back at it. Preacher, in the combat incident in which he was killed, not only did Preacher have his gun loaded, he fought like a demon. As a result of his action, he was awarded a Bronze Star for valor. And if you had ever looked at the guy and talked to the guy, you would say, he wouldn't fire a shot in anger. Well, it's simply not that way. Please, don't forget those people that have returned home with Agent Orange-related issues, post-traumatic stress disorder, as my nephew, and the families that care for them, the families that suffer with them, and those honorable men and women that are still in the military service and about to go back into harm's way or whatever, those loved ones are still here, and they suffer greatly every day. What I'm going to do now is we're going to have the raising of the colors by the Troy Police Honor Guard. Now we're going to hear the national anthem from the Troy Heritage Band. Going to have the Pledge of Allegiance by Mayor Dane Slater. While he's making his way to the podium, I'd like to say, welcome, Dane. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Please drown me out with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now going to have the Armed Forces salute by the Heritage Band. Thank you. Thank you. Our guest speaker today is Corporal Richard Pilon. He grew up in Flint, Michigan. He enlisted in the United States Army in 1944 while he was still in Front Central High School. At the duration of the war, he spent 6 months out, and then when he understood that the B-29 group that he had served so well with needed people, he signed up and went back. I'd like to introduce our guest speaker for today, Corporal Richard Pilon, Army Air Force, and then just Air Force. Welcome. Thank you.
I'm not very used to this big a crowd. I usually do high schools, VFWs, American Legions. But Veterans Day to me is very important. And every time that I can honor a veteran or veterans, I'm there. And I wear my uniform so that everybody knows that I am, and then I try to tell them what I'm about. Okay, I wrote this down. I'm 88 and a half this month. I tend to, when I tell my story, get off on the wrong track. So if you bear with me, I'm going to read this. Okay, a little background on me. 71 years ago, last month, Air Force recruiters came into high school. My 3 buddies and I enlisted. I was called up in 45. War ended while I was in basic. When I tell my story to people that ask, I kiddingly say, when they found out that I was in basic, the Japanese gave up. I re-enlisted for 3 years after the war in December of 45 for a B-29 group that was being formed to be stationed in Germany. Never happened. 3 months later, in the middle of winter in Clovis, New Mexico, Deming Air Base, Project Wonderful was canceled. So they got me for 3 years. Wound up at Bolling Air Base, Washington, D.C., which was the Andrews of the day. In the supply room. June of 48, they were looking for volunteers for the airlift, which I did, thinking the war is over. Get to go overseas, like a vacation. But it was nothing of the sort. Blockade began in June of 26, 1948, was lifted May 12th, 49. 11 months, 24/7, worst weather on record. Saved 2.2 million people. Flying continued in September until September 30th, 49. Last official flight. And on the side here, we have our reunion every month. Every year at that time of the year at a different place in the United States so that not everybody can go to the East Coast, West Coast, wherever they're living. So it gives a chance for the guys. We're not getting any younger. We, Berlin Airlift veterans, claim to have won the first battle of the Cold War. Think about it. By making Russia back down. December 48, my 3 years were up. They wanted me to re-up. Promised me the moon. Didn't get it the first time. No way, send me home. Discharged December 48. Came home, came home, and then back in July 4th, 1944, I soloed my first aircraft. Didn't get to fly militarily because I got in too late. I used my GI Bill to get my pilot's license in 6 months. They paid for everything, so every day that was good weather, I was flying. That's why it didn't take me only till 6 months. Benefits run out in 1950, just as I was to get my commercial rating. Was married at the time and started a family, could not afford it. I quit flying. In the 70s, I started flying again, having owned 2 aircraft, 2 different aircraft. Enacted the Air Force with World War II warbirds at air shows since '78. My first visit to the EAA convention, yearly convention that they have in Oshkosh, we took our Cessna Skyhawk, flew over, single engine, over Lake Michigan, from Muskegon to Oshkosh. I was flying out of Owasso at the time. And that's why when I got interested in reenacting the World War II with the airplanes. I lost 2 wives. I had them for 18 years apiece. Both of ovarian cancer. Last one died in 2002. That ended that. Had a pretty rough couple of years. My present, I call her my new wife, saved my life, helping to bring me back. We were married 3rd of October, 2006. Celebrated 9 years a month ago at our reunion. Our Berlin Airlift group was celebrating our 25th anniversary as an organization. And also, we celebrated our 9-year anniversary that same night at our farewell banquet. I'm a life member of the Yankee Air Force Museum in St. Clair Shores. I don't know, wait a minute, in Willow Run. We'll get to St. Clair Shores next time. National Warplane Museum, Geneseo, New York. First 2 years that I retired in '92, I spent 6 months, or 6 weeks. I don't have that written down, so bear with me. 6 weeks, 24/7 with the B-17, the B-25, and PBY Catalina, barnstorming up and down the East Coast as far west as Ohio. Did that for 2 years. Most of the time, when it wasn't the air show weekend, they came out in the C-47 and did the air shows. I didn't do anything on the weekend, but during the week, they'd park that airplane someplace, and I would collect money, people coming in to get a close-up look of the aircraft. Fun, fun, fun. I'm also a member of the Arsenault Democracy Museum in St. Clair Shores. Met them in 2009. Started World War II reenacting, doing 4th Armored, 704th Tank Destroyer Group. Then, they don't do too much reenacting anymore. Then, So doing the reenacting, the 5th Rangers reenactors, both Detroit and Ohio groups, adopted me. 82nd Airborne Group from Indiana adopted me. 101st Airborne 506 Easy Company, they adopted me. Those groups, like I don't have to pay dues with those outfits. They don't let me spend a penny. They like to tell the public that they have a real World War II vet reenacting with them. This is where we try to educate the public that the freedoms they have today were not won easily. Showing them what the military had to go through, portraying everything but the blood as best we can. Okay, I'm a World War II vet also. But the men that did and died for us before me, I hold myself responsible to honor them and to tell their story in any way I can. And an aside here, the Air Force alone lost 88,119 men during World War II. That's just the air crews. You can imagine how those B-17s, B-24s had 10 men crew. And they lost a lot of airplanes. Every time one of them airplanes went down, there was 10 men lost. Last year, I was privileged to go on my honor flight to Washington, D.C. to see our memorials. It was from the Mid-Michigan Honor Flight Group based in Mecosta, Michigan. Their inaugural flight on the 24th, first one. They've made a magazine for that. I've got all of those pictures. In fact, I'm in it 24 times. And their medals that they always give out at the to everybody that goes on their flights is a one of a kind, because it says inaugural flight, June 24th, 1914. 2014, I'm sorry. Which brings me to the end of this. By reading a couple of emails from some of our young 82nd Indiana reenactors that dress in 40s attire, military and civilian, and welcome home their Indiana Honor Flight heroes from every trip. They just did that last week, the 15th one since 2013. I'll read the things. And a portion of a letter from one of their veterans. The first one that I'm going to read was from Alexandria Van Tilburg. This was, she just put this on from 2014. It came out originally. A year ago, this is 2014 that this was put out. A year ago, which would have put it back in 2013. We were about to complete our 6th flight. Last night, we have completed 15. The work of Indy Honor Flight is so important. Please give their page a look. Okay, Corey, I'm going to read the whole thing. I was just going to read the one section, but I'll read the whole thing and show you. This young man is fantastic. Another Indy Honor Flight in the books. Thank you so much to all those who came out. By the way, before I go too far, when I came back, we came back to the Amway hangar in Grand Rapids. The Yankee Air Museum's B-17 was in the hangar We used the Amway hangar for all the people. That place was jammed. But every place we went on our honor flight, the people greeted us. Washington, D.C., at the airport at Grand Rapids when we left. We stayed at the, what college? I'm sorry. I knew I shouldn't have got off the track. But anyway, Ferris University. 5 o'clock in the morning, we drove down to Grand Rapids. You know how far that is. All the way for about the first 7 or 8 overpasses that we came under. Fire departments. All their lights going. Their ladders making an arch. The airport, when we left, the fire trucks made an arch. We taxied through it. Washington, D.C., when we got there, same thing. It was just, I get goosebumps talking about it. It was fantastic. You can't believe how these groups, these honor flight groups, honor the veterans. They work tirelessly all through the year to make, all the money is donated. It's all volunteer stuff. The Guardians, and they work like crazy all year trying to get enough money to work up a flight. Also, to try to find the veterans to take on those flights. A lot of them don't know. Okay, another Indy Honor flight is in the books. Thank you so much to all those who came out. Both Alexandria and myself. Thank you to Kevin Getz, Thomas Getz, Ethan McDowell, Susan Teresa Spencer, Tom Manlove, Nick Buddick, Morgan Buddick, and my father for coming out and adding so much to the experience. There's hundreds of people greeting them coming back. I had a lot of the public and the staff of Indy Honor Flight come up to me and thank us for coming out and adding to people's understanding of why we were there that night. It was Halloween night. Thank you so much to Grant Thompson, Carol Vase Ford, and all the other staff and volunteers for all their hard work. We do, here's the part that I asked Corey if that I could do this whole thing. And he said, definitely. We do what we do because the greatest generation deserves more than thank yous than we can ever give in our lifetime. Without them, we would have nothing, absolutely nothing. That opportunity for education, you wouldn't have it without them. Your freedom to bitch and moan and groan and complain, you wouldn't have it without them. The ability to do as you please and move as you please, you wouldn't have it without them. You would have nothing without them. So next time you want to complain, you want to get bogged down in politics, want to put down and hate others, you remember those men and women who fought and those who died for your rights to do that. Maybe it'll stop you in your tracks, make you rethink. Our world is built on top of the ground where brave men and women fought, and some paid the ultimate sacrifice. Tread lightly and work to build on that consecrated ground a world worthy of their sacrifice, their gift of service, so we don't have to. Now, portion of a letter that one of the veterans wrote to the office. I got more attention in those 24 hours than I have received in the 68 years since I came home from World War II. He went on to say, I still choke up when I tell people about this trip. And all those people in the gym was just unbelievable. When they come back, they got a school gym that they use to greet them as they come back in. And the gym is crowded. I've seen pictures. Just like the hangar was crowded. I mean, that was a big hangar. B-17 was in there, but there was room for another 3 or 4 B-17s in that hangar. Okay, this was back in 2014. That's going back saying, we are making our 6th and final flight of this year, this Saturday. This was back in 2014. Please come out that night to ensure we get more letters like this one. If I was a letter writer, I would have done the same thing. Honoring veterans any way you can is so important. My reenacting is what I do, plus shadow box here, shadow box there, and one of the fellows at church, I took care of him, all his medical appointments, doctor appointments, and everything. Sometimes 2-3 times a week. He had a little wife he was in his 90s. A little wife, a couple years behind him. She couldn't take that walker, that rolling walker, which you'd sit in, get it in and out of the trunk of the car. It wasn't an imposition. I felt so good doing that. And I told him, we visited him every Sunday after church, every Sunday evening. After we had lunch, we'd go visit him. He died last year. So I'm just hoping that some of those things that I do and some of the people that I've contacted, doing that reenacting again, I've had veterans come up and talk to me, and I've got so many stories. It's just like the Berlin Airlift. I didn't realize what the Berlin Airlift was until 1996 when I joined the Berlin Airlift Veterans Association in Dayton, Ohio. There was a little blurb in our local paper in Flint that this was going on down there. I called them. They said, you're more than welcome. I joined them right then there. I've made 3 trips back to Berlin. The German people just love us veterans, Berlin Airlift veterans. And they teach it in schools. They don't hear. People here under, about 50 on down, or maybe even before that, they don't know about the Berlin Airlift. I wear a jacket that's all fixed up with our patch, this big on the back of it. Black leather jacket in the winter, tan jacket in the summer. People ask me, they thank me for my service, and then they ask me, what is the Berlin Airlift? The wife, after the 3rd time that somebody stopped me, when I got through talking to these people, I turn around and look for the wife. I finally find her. She says, where were you? I said, where were you? She says, well, I heard that story a million times. So just think about it. What he said about honoring, and there's a group that, honor flight group someplace here in Detroit too. I don't know how you get to it, but if you Google honor flight, you'll find it. You Google honor flight mid-Michigan, you'll get there. There is a national organization, and these are just some of the, what do they call them? Anyway, they're different groups in different places, but they're still a part of the honor flight, National Honor Flight Organization. So, thanks for your attention, and I hope maybe something I said will stick with you, and that maybe you can try in your own way to honor a vet. When you see a vet, thank them. Don't ever pass up a chance to thank a vet. Personally, I understand that. When they first started doing that to me, I felt uncomfortable. But then I was told one time, they asked me about what I did in the service. I said, I was just in a supply room. I was just supply clerk. I had an old timer one time at a reenactment. This is just a few years ago. When I said that, he says, son, I was older than he was, but he looked older than me. He said, don't forget, if you weren't in that supply room, well, those guys out there would have nothing to work with. And I know now that every job in the military, regardless how low it is, you're there because your job is important. They're not going to take you into the Army and give you a job that don't mean anything. Everybody in there has got a job. The tiniest cog can go bad and things happen. So remember, thank you.
We're going to have the laying of the memorial wreath. Richard, if you come here. Troy Police Honor Guard. I'd like to thank Troy Police Honor Guard. I hope you know that there are 13 members of the Troy Police Department that are former members or currently serving our military. I'd like to introduce Pastor Bob Cornwall from the Central Woodward Christian Church. He's going to do our benediction for the day.
Thank you for coming out this morning for this opportunity to honor veterans. And while I am not a veteran, my father served in the Navy as a seaman on a ship in World War II, and my grandfather was a lieutenant commander on a destroyer in the Pacific, also in World War II. So in honor of my father and grandfather and all of you who have served, I'm thankful for the opportunity to share with you in this day. And so I have been tasked with praying us out, and I shall do so, and then when I'm finished praying, the band will play, and then you are dismissed into the day. Let us pray. Compassionate and merciful one, we have come here today to pay tribute to those who have served our country in the military. We wish to express our gratitude to you for their courage and selflessness, both those serving now and those who have served before. We honor their service, but we also commit ourselves to making sure that our veterans receive the honor and respect and care they deserve upon returning to civilian life. May we uphold the values of freedom and of the inherent dignity of human life that their service embodies. May we honor the labors and sacrifices of these veterans not only with words but with our own deeds. And even as we lift up our veterans, may we also remember and honor the families who share the burdens and the sacrifices of their loved ones. May the families of those now serving in harm's way be preserved from fear and anxiety, living instead with hope of reunion. And even as we honor the service of these women and men who have served our country, we also pray that peace might be secured so that all of creation might share in the common good. Amen.
Thank you very much for coming today. On behalf of Veterans Post 4037 in Troy, thank you very much. And gee, if you ever go down to the Infantry Museum at Fort Benning, Zima Laird is a beautiful lady there. She's a host, and give her a good Michigan hug. Thank you.